with a regular session of the Wetzel County Schools Board of Education meeting. We will start out with the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation. Mr. Glasscock will do the Pledge of Allegiance and I will do the Invocation. Anyone not wishing to participate may stay seated.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for the wonderful day to start our students and staff back to school. We hope that you will continue to guide us so that we can do the best that we can for the students of Wetzel County. Amen. This is a fun part of a school board meeting. We love to recognize our students and their advisors. And so the first, when I call your name, if you would come, please stand up here with me and stay standing up here with me till we get everybody because we want to get a picture. Our first group is the National Tsa Winners. We have national. That's fabulous. I'm not going to say everything you did because we're going to get you up here and let you tell us everything you did because you know it better than I do. So when I call your name, if you would please come up and we'll just keep everybody up here for a picture. First of all, from 100 High School, these students are Melina Rush. Vincent Sigley. Morgan Fudge.
She could be here tonight.
Kaylee Bright. Johnny Yeager. Rachel Snedden. Oh, she's college. That's the reason. Okay. Colton Whitehill.
He's in college too.
Jackson Huggins.
Football practice.
Okay. And we'd also like to have the two advisors come up, Mr. Rex Rush and Mr. Jeremy Couch, for the picture. Mr. Snedden too. I'm sorry, I didn't realize he was back. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay, so how do you want it?
I want the advisors to get behind them, although they're taller than the advisors. Yes, okay. I'm gonna do that too. Yeah, because I don't care. I'm not gonna cover up my head. It's okay.
I probably think
All right.
we're
Oh,
good.
nice. This Wells good. Just, hey, oh, yeah. Okay, 1, 3. I'll take a couple. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Cute.
Okay, would one of you want to take the certificates of the ones
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Are you gonna have them tell us? Oh, I forgot, yes. First mistake I've ever made. Okay, so what we'd like you guys to do is tell us what your projects were, what you did, some of your experience when you were there. Just fill everybody in.
Well, I did a dragster design, and I built a CO2 car for that. And you had to have the fastest time to win, and your designs also had to be correct, and your interview had to be fairly good, so you could win that. And me and Vincent did a junior solar spread car. Can I tell him?
Which placed first place nationally. But we had to create a solar powered car, and whoever had the fastest time trial won. Whoever had the best.
And then I also did a mechanical engineering competition with Kaylee and Johnny and Morgan, who's not here. And you had to build a mousetrap car where it had to stop exactly 12 feet on the dot as fast as it possibly could. You want to say anything about it?
And you guys took second in that.
And we took second in that.
Tell them what stopped on girls.
Oh, and it stopped at 12 feet exactly.
Whoa.
Exactly.
I saw the
Oh
video.
my God, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing, fabulous. And we still have you here, so we can, continue watching what you do in the school system.
Right.
And get there. So
Okay.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our next group of students to honor are from Magnolia High School with the FFA land judging. And as we call your names, would you please come up and stand up here too to wait for the picture? And then we'll also ask that the advisors, Mr. Ash and Cal Curtis, would also come up. All right, so we have Eden Harlan. Lydia Midcap. Gage Scott. Gavin Tedrow. Congratulations. And Chloe Anderson. Okay, and if Kala and Scott Ash would come, please. Thank you very much. How do you want us here? They're tall.
Okay, I want the two girls to come up front. Yes, I want all the ladies up front. Okay, yes, this is good. All right, I'll do a couple, we'll go both ways here. All right, on three, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna try one this, I'm not, going back this way. On three, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Please, I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Tell us what land judging
What's your
Gage will.
Okay, go ahead, tell us.
Land judging is a very competitive competition where you have to judge the characteristics in the soil, slope, erosion, and we were the state champions.
Yes.
Great, excellent.
Big chance. The next thing on our agenda is a presentation by Mckinley and Associates on the Magnolia Cafeteria study and the bus maintenance updates. Thank you for attending.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having us, by the way. We've worked for Western Penny Schools, which is a long time now.
Long time.
As long as I've been McKinley, it's like 05, so we've been working with you guys for a long time. We have an opportunity to come in front of you guys very often, to be honest with you. We work with your administration, that they take care of things well enough, we don't have to come in, but it's a good idea to come in and show you where we're at and a couple things. Troy Lund is an architectural designer in our office over here. We'll be showing some things. We'll be sharing some stuff on the screen, but I also have some hard copies, and these are exactly what we're sharing on screen. So maybe a little hard to see up there, so I thought it might be worth passing both these out. I don't know that I have copies enough for everybody. We'll do our best here. Troy, you want to help me maybe pass these out? Here, so the two things we're coming to talk about tonight, we're working on a design for a bus maintenance facility for the administration, replacing what's out there with an updated facility, and also a feasibility study. What's the most feasible option of addressing the cafeteria or lack thereof at Magnolia? Both long-standing kind of issues, but if we're sharing, I guess I can just follow Troy. We'll start with Magnolia, and then the second set of stuff. These are some drawings. We do have them on the screens as well. That might be a little tough.
the drawing?
This is, yes.
Okay, we'll share one of those.
And it's a big package, it's got some black thing in the.
So we go first, I just a quick overview. There we go.
And we're gonna try to stay pretty high level when you guys go on the agenda, but if we need to slow down or go back up, speak up, we're loose here, anything you wanna talk about, okay? Sound good? Troy, I'm gonna let Troy kind of walk you through Magnolia here, what we've done so far.
All right. Good evening. We try to come up with a simple and hopefully economic solution to provide you with a little better cafeteria space, common space, where the children could be in one area, be supervised, and it would be on its own with the warming kitchen. So if you look at the first page, that's just simply showing you what we're thinking of. That is, we're only talking about working with the corridor in the classrooms up there, upper left-hand corner, and across the center, which is your commons, and your kitchen, warming kitchen, and the corridor with the gymnasium, and the loading dock.
I'm gonna jump in there real quick, because, you know, this board, some members here, some previous board members that aren't here anymore in administration, we've had lots of ideas on these things, right? And we were tasked like, what's the most feasible option to work with? And really, the conversations kind of evolved into there's a lot of space in this existing school. So, you know, how can we work within the confines of that? Seemed to be the most feasible approach than catwalks across the road, some of the other things, you know, adding a building on top of a building. There was a lot of conversations. So this is kind of where we're focusing right now, just as the most feasible option, just to kind of give you a baseline. And in this, I'm sure you're familiar with Magnolia, but, you know, this first sheet, you know, this is the main entrance, just to give you an idea where I'm pointing on the screen. So this is the existing gym, right? So this is where the existing dining area gets sit now, right? So, and this is the wing, this is the original school of, you know, everything else was pretty much added on to other than the gym, which was built in the 50s or something. That's what's left of the original building. That's where we're confining kind of the study of that original wing of the school. Good, Troy. So you want me to go next, Troy?
Yeah, you go to the next sheet, because that was just showing existing conditions.
When I go to there, what did I do?
There it is. Okay, so what we looked at,
Oh, yep.
You were good.
It won't let me do that, sorry, I'm just trying to make it.
There we
for
go.
everybody.
there we go. So what we looked at in the lower right-hand corner of your sheet is the new layout, where we would remove those classrooms in that vertical classroom wing, and move the warming kitchen up there with necessary functions, storage, restrooms, janitor's closet, dishwash, serving. They would go in that, right in that wing right there. So good, that's nice, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
And we'd also like to, if you go up a little bit on that screen, the existing loading dock, I heard rumors it doesn't work very well for a loading dock, because it's kind of around the corner, you can't back a van into the loading dock. So what we were thinking of is we square that loading dock off, so you could, there's an alley that runs right back there, you could back a truck or van up to that loading dock. And we would be using the higher dock. If you're familiar with the area, the lower dock brings you into the classroom commons area and the existing kitchen. Up above, 2'4" up is the gymnasium level. So we're going to move everything up to that, up higher. So then we would need to improve the dock so that you could back in with a truck. You take your food up to the higher level, right from the truck, and feed it into the kitchen through there. And there's some things we had to worry about. The existing is, that's also exit corridors. That's fire exiting out of the second floor in the gym. We were able to do that by widening the stairs a little bit, rearranging the loading dock so that all can work in conjunction. You still have your exits out, and then you have a usable dock for both levels. And we were thinking, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see just a sample, an example of a simple loading dock lift. You could go from grade, stop at the intermediate 2-foot level, which is your first floor, or going up to the 4-foot level, which is your upper level where the cafeteria would be.
So, you know, to give you an idea, this blow-up plan Troy's showing here, walk you through, of course, Cecil property is right on the other side, right? And that's, that's one of the limitations. You have limitations because you're in floodplain too. We talked about ideas. It kind of came out in the study, the issues with the loading dock out there, that, we address these problems at the same time. So it addresses, first of all, some degradation of the concrete. It's not really usable. I think they came up with a lot, so you can't even really get into this thing. It's not, how does a truck back a turn in like this much space? This makes it actually a functioning loading dock maintaining accident. The loading, the dock lift, which Will was talking about, is an easy way to get to multiple levels too. So we have a dock lift out there that they back up to it, they can bring it up to a certain level, or it would actually hit the lower level dock for regular deliveries, not kitchen deliveries. It's doing a couple things there, but it came up in the study, and I think it's a good move to fix this, because we're already in that area working.
And we'd like to also propose putting a canopy over the area, just to keep the snow and rain.
Sure.
It's used daily, so why not give us some protection?
Can I interject something here really quick?
Absolutely. Jim.
We have a few new board members, and I want to make sure everybody's up to speed on where we are. They've been commissioned to do, I don't know if that's the right word, we've hired them to give us a cafeteria feasibility study at Magnolia High School. There are no funds set aside for this particular project right now. Like they talked about, we talked about building a second story on top of the band room. We talked about possibly building something across from Magnolia High School, but that was going to run you close to $6 million, if I remember correctly as an estimate, and things have changed since then. So what they've looked at is, okay, here's maybe a more economical way we can do that. It's not without some maybe displacement of some existing classrooms. There's things that would have to be done to make this work, but that's where we are. There's nothing set aside. We don't have a plan to move forward with this right now, but we've talked about this for years and years and years. It's been a constant issue that's come up. We've got issues at Magnolia High School with their cafeteria, but we figured that a feasibility study would give us a place to start, so then we can start planning for it in the future. The second thing they're going to talk about here in a bit is the bus garage, which is in bad shape right now. And we do have some funds set aside for that. We've set aside approximately $3.7 million to start on that project. We haven't started on anything yet, but that's part of why they're here today, is that we can, before we make that kind of commitment, we want to make sure we're all on the same page and all on board, because that one's going to roll very soon. The cafeteria study can roll, but that'll take some more work as to getting some true commitment for that. But so that's where we are. I just wanted to get the new board members up to speed on how we got to where we are.
That's a good point. Because for us, we could go a little further into the study. But it doesn't make sense to keep continuing down a path that no one's interested in, right? Jeff mentioned classrooms. I don't know that you mentioned specifically. There's an autism classroom, special education classroom, bottom quarter of this, where really for the line that works, that's addressed by the new classroom and the existing cafeteria space to the right. Actually, is an improvement because we can build a toilet room within that facility that's ADA compliant, has the capacity, because there's some incontinence issues with kids of that age. You can address those things, with adult changing stations, so we can improve that area as well. There's some displacement in other areas depending on the scale you get. It more than accomplishes probably the student count you need for dining, though. And those are the multiple layouts, down to the Oliver Twist layout, which I think, what was the number on that one?
It was pretty high, right?
Way more than you probably need. That's just packing them in there, right? But it works. You got room to, to a much more looser arrangement, which is less. So there's multiple table arrangements that can accommodate it, and it puts it all in a setting where you can leave the tables there. You have dedicated dining. You don't have to worry. It's off. You don't have to clean that area up, before games. Frees up your commons. Leaving some of that open space where people come in, we felt that was important. You could add another classroom where that commons is located. We felt that opening was an important arrival point for people coming to Magnolia. Seeing the gym, seeing the trophy cases, not to block off that entire view, with a set of classrooms through there. So that's kind of where we're at. So I don't know if you guys have Any questions?
There's no,
Okay.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
have a question for you that I don't know. Where it says street prep, is it going to still be a satellite thing from New Martinsville School to Magnolia if we would go with this plan?
Yes, it
It
would,
still would
correct?
be.
Yeah,
Well,
this
we
design is
do
for
some
everybody.
prep at the school now, so.
Okay.
So there's, I have a lot of questions once we get into
So-
the meat and potatoes.
I can
so.
answer that a little bit.
Okay,
The design is just to maintain essentially the same food service delivery we have now.
Okay.
So the Martinsville School will still be delivering. It's still, it's minimal prep like they're doing now, they are doing some things, so they have to have some stuff, but it's not a full-blown kitchen. To do a full-blown kitchen here would require more space, if we were to go that route.
And that would be, if this project moves forward, we would meet with those who use that facility and get an idea of how they use it, if what we show works, or if we need to improve it.
Oh, yeah, this is lines on paper at this
Yeah.
point. We've had, we had essentially 2 meetings, kind of like to get a ballpark, site meetings, kind of rough out an area. We would have to have a whole lot more conversations on specific to go further, and we're a long ways from that, as Jeff said. I mean, this is just to give you some idea of a trajectory, because even this, although it's not, you said 6, I may say more, talking about adding a floor, putting a bridge across the road there to the adjacent property, but it's still gonna be millions of dollars that we're talking about, but it's not $10 million. So we felt like this was a more appropriate approach, particularly with everything you're looking at, right? To make it something that could be achievable. But we're just looking at this point in time, and what's the next step, Study is all we've really been hired to do at this point in time. This is different than the bus garage, we can talk about that as we move into it.
anybody have any questions?
There is no ballpark dollar figure.
Well, not at this point. So that would be the next step, if we felt like, hey, this is a good plan, we'd like to have a little bit more information, then we could start looking at, okay, we have some structural conditions that we'd like to open that wall up, because that exists in corridor. But to do that, we need to do a little bit more structural evaluation, so we need to spend a little bit more time with it to really get a good idea of the costs. That would be the next step, and we can go further in the study and get a conceptual kind of budget put together. That would be the natural next step, do a little bit more investigation and try to get some numbers in front of, you guys and Jeff to start chewing on, how to plan for this thing.
I taught at Magnolia for a while, and then we've been kicking this can down the street for years.
50 years, just to say.
I was gonna say close the Dairy Queen.
Since we closed lunch.
So that closed the Dairy Queen, right? Yeah, I know, it's a problem. It's a problem, because the school was not designed, it was designed for the open campus. Everybody left.
It
And
was.
now as a closed campus, the only thing that saved you is the population growth, right? If you had the amount of kids you had in that school opened, there's no way you'd be accommodating the way you are now. And it's not comfortable the way it's set up now, right? But, I mean, this
And
works.
and it causes multiple lunch periods. I don't know if this would solve that, but right now there are 2 lunches.
Well, I think, 2 lunches may still be like, an arrangement,
Necessary
underneath of this. So where are the
Can I
counts?
see
So
two
you can see the counts here
Max.
at the top. Like this nice kind of cafe style, round seats, everybody's got plenty of room, that's 136 students seats, without venturing into that corridor, which we have a potential, because that is not exiting, to actually use that space as part of the commons, the old corridor that went out. But we'd like to be able to structurally kind of confirm how big the openings could be in that wall, to make it really feasible from a supervision standpoint. If you've got lunch duty, you don't want a corridor out there where you can't see kids in. But it could be a nice like senior dining area, put some high top tables, fill out in that area. None of these plans use that area, that little quarter to the right. But we can, I think, from an exiting standpoint, looking at how the building exiting works, actually encroach into that space. The middle plan, which is kind of that middle of the road, that's 216 students. No, I'm sorry, the middle plan is the most dense. That's 216 going into that way. 176 the other way. 176 feels about right. That's about 2 lunch periods. A little bit more. That's a little bit more than we need for 2 lunch periods, I believe. And if you put a few out there in the hall, if say we made that work, you may get a good 200.
So if you put some in the hall, you're talking about maybe this wall right here could come down.
Parts of it, you know, this is all related to cost, right? Because that is a structural wall carrying precast floors. Could we open it up? Sure. You know, I mean, all things are possible.
At a cost.
But there's going to be some cost involved in what we do. I'd like to see what's some minimal opening of what we do without too much budget impact. You know, that would take a little deeper dive into the evaluation and really figure it out. But it doesn't make any sense to spend, you know, we're working essentially hourly for you at this point, to spend your dollars on something you're not interested in at all. So, felt like it was a good point to get in front of you and make sure this is a good direction to go. We can look at that.
Any other questions? Okay, on to the bus garage.
So, bus is moving a little bit further along. I think it was actually kind of an approved project. What we didn't have was a defined scope or all funding identified. It's actually in your 10-year plan. This project, I think the cafeteria renovation maybe too, actually.
Yes, it is.
I think both of them are in the 10-year plan. There was a preliminary, just, you know, real rough conceptual estimate done at that point in time. There wasn't a lot of interaction. Names, faces have changed a little bit, you know, who we sat down with, but we had some good meetings. So I feel like it's a lot further. This essentially represents like the first stage of design under our contract, which is schematic design. But what we, I think, need to sit down is really identify, you know, the budget, and how that's gonna be approached here.
And do we work towards this to go out for bid? That's really what we're.
Yeah, we keep moving forward. So first drawing here is just a site plan. If you're familiar with the site out there at the center, you know, we're on, you know, seven, right?
Yes.
You think I know this growing up in Tyler County, but, you know, it's across the Whatcom County line, so. Yeah, 7's to your bottom left, right? So we tried to, one of the primary things in a bus facility like this, and you're probably aware, we just did the one in Tyler County, you know, is circulation and then bus storage. Those are two big pressures on the site, big pressures. These are not small cars we're parking, right? We want to make, and the goal would be to park as much, all or as much as you can of the fleet at this facility, both for short term, which is during the school year, which means not all buses will be there short term, because you have some out remote, and that's what we work through with these guys, is like how many during the school year, and then during the summer months, what's the maximum we can kind of carry. So that's the count, and boy, I'll tell you what, I can't even read that, I can almost see it. Rob, we need to do a better job doing my eyes, I think. ECL.
Got 45.
Yeah, so 40, so in summer, we're accommodating up to 45 buses. We have some space for cars too, of course, that's gonna be necessary. During the school, you know, 20 buses. The difference is you really don't want back-to-back, what do you call it, parking, of course, during the school year, right? But we can start kind of stacking them a little bit in the summer. So some of that stacking arrangement is the summer only. I think that's the dash line. The dash lines are the summer term parking. The hard undashed lines of the bus parking, and these are the big rectangles with numbers on them, just for following, or would be during time. Flow through the site essentially follows, you know, a counterclockwise, which is a nice orientation, you know, with the changes, actually with the parking lot changes you made, I don't know, a couple years ago, you know, it helps with the flow of this. Actually could probably get a little bit more parking than what we're showing in reality. It's just hard to show it on paper. Because that parking out front, the summer parking out front, could be some vehicle, just car parking in front of the school as well during the school year. But flow around, of course, the old, you can barely see it probably in the drawing. There's a rectangle at the back of the shaded box. That's the existing maintenance facility. Any scheme has to go away. You know, and probably you want it to go away anyway, based on, you know, just the age and condition of the building. So that creates, you know, there's going to be some displacement. We'll time it as best we can moving forward. And have to figure out, you know, during that time that's down, that's going to be the working with, you know, whether it's working with local, you know, counties to kind of work out some cooperative arrangement while this building's down, as we're getting this one constructed, because really, it's gotta come down to really even approach the construction. There's just not, there's not enough room on the site to really accomplish, and say that you're gonna maintain that as a garage or a building to do. I think that would be, even if, like I said, all things are possible, highly unrecommended, right? Just because the construction going on, it's not gonna be good. So the shaded area is the new garage. It's a detached building. Essentially, that was the conversation. Do we need to attach it? Do we need a walkway? It felt like it was self-contained enough that we didn't really need to be physically attached to this building. That actually helps. You don't have to worry about loading existing foundations and affecting the existing structure. It streamlines the construction process and quicker, put you down less time. But there's just a short walkway coming out of the school to this new facility. And then, circulation, what I said, these are drive-through bays. They may be in practice actually be used as pull in, back out, but they essentially have doors on both sides. So you could pull through the building, if you move your parts bins out of the way, which will probably be right in the middle. So the other component we were asked to kind of look at was what's the possibility of locating some county office in storage, which is being displaced. Some of it's being displaced by this facility. Because the existing maintenance, I think, how many, one bay, half a bay?
One bay's got all the inventory, all the chemical inventory in one bay right now.
So, what are some of the options and, the square footage? All these rectangles on the right-hand side represent the same square footage, just different configurations. It's just a graphical device to kind of show the storage that was kind of discussed as needed. You can see just I think it's graphically, it doesn't fit on this site. I mean, from a feasible standpoint, there were some conversations about two-story bus garages and some other things, but from a feasibility standpoint, is adding a second floor for the purpose of county storage, certainly not bus maintenance, is not a real feasible option. There's much more, probably better ways to look at this on other sites that would save you a lot of money. But we just thought we'd show that to kind of show that space. Troy, can you go to the next page? We did get a little further in this, just to give you an idea. Maybe just zoom in on the floor plan. I don't think we need all of that. So the general program, and this has changed a good deal from the outline that was talked about in the 10-year plan, but not radically, because it's very similar to the program that they built in Tyler County, but just more tailored for the needs here in Wetzel County. Building it within a simple frame. It's all this building, as opposed to the one, if you visited the one in Tyler County, has a small administrative wing and a bus. We're fitting everything within a steel frame structure. By doing that, we're actually adding some additional storage in the facility over top of the office areas. This also came up in our last review. I think it would be advantageous to increase that second floor mezzanine storage. So everything, except for service. So let me walk you through the plan. Of course, we have a wash bay, which is automated wash bay, and the plan to the left. That would be at the farthest point from the existing building in that site plan that I showed you.
How does that compare to the wash bay we have right now? I want the board to know that.
How does that compare to the?
What do we have right now?
You guys can answer that probably better
Wash
than
bay
me.
sitting in a corner.
What's happening right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
The outside and garden hose.
Water hose. Brushes.
Which, and of course, there's long-term maintenance, advantages to being able to keep your fleet clean, washing that stuff off. You would have undercarriage washes as part of this. You have the benefit of some lessons learned from the neighboring district, where we found that, probably the overspray on those undercarriage bus washes, it's amazing that stuff will shoot 20 feet in the air when you let it. So I did learn that one. So we have a physical wall separating all the way to the deck, essentially, in that first wash bay, right? Then a series, two double service bays. So these are sized a little bit large enough that you could actually have two buses in there and space in between, front to front or back to back, however they will put in there. Then a smaller service bay, and the intent of that's more for smaller fleet vehicles. And then access to the mezzanine through this central stair corridor, and then we have parts, tire storage within a compressor room within the facility. Another lesson learned: compressors can be loud, even though you're in a maintenance facility. it's best to give them some acoustic separation as opposed to within the shop, so we have a separate room for it. That came up in our meetings. Fluids room, these are where you hold your, everything, all your oil, your grease, all those would be stored in. And we have outside access, so that those deliveries come right in. This tire storage is so minimal, it's really just rolling in, I believe we have 14 tires, I'm trying to remember what the count was, it wasn't a lot. And that maintenance is all done outside of the district sent out anyway, so these are just extra tires ready to go on. And then we have, so that's kind of the maintenance side of the bus maintenance side. We also have the admin portion, and we have the driver portion. So we have three programmatic elements we're really addressing in storage, I guess. So drivers are also, we have a training room for drivers, size, to have the fleet of drivers come in. We also have, a break room, which this would be a daily thing where they could come in, pull up their vehicle, buses stored there, they could use the break room. They have access to, to a restroom, and then also, if they're there, they could, for training or something, use these as a training room as well. Toilet, restroom serving both those areas. The vestibule, if you can flip back to the site plan, just to make sure you can kind of remember where that's at. So that vestibule is right there. So that's essentially where you're coming into the building from this side of the school. So go back to the plan. And then, we have the transportation director's office, and her secretary office. And that's kind of the point of control, and the idea is to separate some of the drivers, so there's some control between flow of drivers coming in, so they're not just hanging out, doing whatever, I guess, and then, also to prevent access from the drivers. You'll see some separation walls there, so they don't just inadvertently, if they're coming in to the training and break room, to kind of be able to control the access back into the shops. Now, of course, if they drive their bus into the shops, all bets are off. We can't teleport them out of their bus out of that area. But just to control access would be part of the overall plan. So there's some other drawings in there, but we don't have to spend much time on these. Just throw that to the next. This is the mezzanine storage, the next plan. Just see that's the overall. We did increase the height, so you have higher areas on each corner of the vents underneath the steel, so you have better more use of storage, and kind of tapering down to this without, let's take advantage of it. So add a few extra feet to the building, you get full use of storage. Keep going, Troy. A small brick, actually it's block, I think, it could be brick, but it's small block, wainscot on the building, just enough, and also all the column, that was a request also to get the columns up off the concrete, so you have less rust considerations, a more maintainable, durable facility, and then metal building essentially from there up. Nice looking building, not dogged off. I don't think it was appropriate to really, trying to make a nice functional building. Keep going. You can see the direct mezzanine with those broad doors. Keep going. These sections. So another request, so we studied this a little bit, was what if we put another full additional maintenance bay on? And I believe that was so what are we going to do with this county storage that's in the existing facility? We could build that third bay, temporarily partition it off, move the stuff into there while you're relocating the storage somewhere else. So the biggest, I could show you the plans, but the biggest impact that has, that is we're pushing the building a little bit further towards the existing. If you remember, we were just kind of like on the edge of it before, so we're essentially a bay width longer, 24 feet longer. And the parking, gets slightly reduced. We have to orient the parking a little bit different under that scheme. And of course, cost. You're building a bigger building. So that's the parking counts. Are there parking counts on here too? I'm not sure. I think it's the same. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but anyway, the orientation had to change a little bit. So that's kind of that's the quick synopsis of where we're at. On the first stage of design, we're ready to move forward. Really keep moving. I do have some budget information I could kind of share with you. I shared this, this is probably one of the bigger challenges.
Before you flip the screen, I want to make sure you all understand, we have set aside approximately $3.6 million. We have setting aside at this moment. I do anticipate I'm working on financial statements now, so I anticipate a pretty healthy carryover. Part of that's because of all this ESSER funds we've had coming in and what we've been able to do that way to set aside some funds. But 3.6 million, remember that number, that's what we have setting for this project right now.
Yeah, so I guess there's really two things we need to decide, right? Is the scope of what we're talking about now, at the cost we're projecting, where you want us to keep moving forward? We can certainly move forward, under our agreement, and work towards, trying to reduce the cost, and we will, regardless. I mean, we'll try to identify areas to save money, but, as we go forward, but, it is a jump from what you have budgeted now.
Right, and I want to say, the reason we have 3.6 million is not because we thought this was going to cost 3.6 million. It's because we've been able to do projects, major projects, with cash. We haven't borrowed money to do projects in years and years and years. We haven't gone to the SBA for help in years and years and years. And so we'd have a carryover money, a carryover balance, and we thought, okay, we'll set aside this much money here, this much money here. Over time, we're up to $3.6 million. So now we can share with them
Well, yeah.
why I really want you to present today, to know what we've got to do.
I just don't care about this stuff.
No.
You're pulling a spreadsheet out of the involved, right?
I don't even know that I had that
Open yet, because I wasn't sure how far we would get, but I kind of share this with you guys. And this isn't in your handouts, but, I think I might have it printed out over there in my bag, I just forgot to hand it out. So we're looking at a 10,000, or say a 14,000 square foot facility. 3,900 square feet of that is the mezzanine above. Essentially the estimate, I'll just get you the bottom line number here. We're looking at a construction cost. Before we talked about that additional bay, about 5.7 is what we're projecting conceptually now in an estimate. It's early, so some of this, there's a lot of work to be done on confirmation. I mean, the lines on paper is where we're at on this now. So there's a lot of work to do as we move forward, and update this and tweak it out. But this is, based on what we our experience, this is where we're at. We do budgets for these guys to carry costs that are not direct construction costs. That would be what you hire the bid day costs, the construction costs. So we also carry in there, what are other costs for fire marshal permit applications, our costs, total project. Those are what we call soft costs. Is 6.8. Add the alternate in. I just did the variance here. The alternate's about $431,000 to add that additional bay. So with the alternate, you're at 7.3, and that's our part on the current estimate.
So before we move forward with that, that's one of these things that, again, these are estimates. That the environment could change for the better or for the worse. As far as I will say, the SBA just said we're not awarding any projects. We're moving it back this latest round.
Yeah. The Nice project they decided because people they wanted to have a reserve because they obligated to give money to people if costs increased. So they wanted to have a reserve on those projects as opposed to giving out the money. Although I think they're going to have protecting $9 million next time.
Yeah, because they said the costs, they're getting cost reporting for construction so high right now, so they're just putting it on hold. So maybe it'll come back around.
That's reflected in here. I'll be honest with you. It's a difficult time to put a budget together for construction right now because it's like all over the map. Jamie can probably attest. We're doing creative strategies on your projects in Payton City right now. We're like this right now. I can cross my fingers. On the air handling unit, it's like outside everybody's control, and it's just this weird oddity in the market right now that just we're hoping to see this like at some point in time we got to see a decline, right, or at least so we're carrying an estimated contingency right now 10% on this. That's a big number. That's $523,000. We're also carrying a project contingency. 5%, probably reasonable, but that's another $326,000. But, you know, that, there is some, I'll tell you, there's some cautiousness in this estimate. You know, what you will pay will be the amount we get on bid day, you know, I mean, obviously. But at this point in the game, for us to go in and estimate and just like throw low numbers at it, that wouldn't be responsible. We work with you guys long enough, I just said, you know, work with you guys 17 years, I wouldn't want to throw a number like that. They throw a $3.4 million project at you and then just have it escalate to like 6, and then it's like, what do we do? So, you know, this is the best, for where we're at now, where we think this thing will kind of shake out. If we were to start now and, you know, have this thing out to bid, you know, early next spring, that's, you know, 2 years from now, I don't have a crystal ball. You know, I mean, I wish I could tell you that, you know, but this is the best we can kind of figure out right now.
And what I really need is, I just want everybody to be aware that, you know, we have this carryover. If we're gonna continue to do projects on a cash basis, which is a wonderful thing, without borrowing money, we're gonna have to take some of this carryover. If this becomes one of our prioritized projects, which I think it probably should be, it's not my call, but we've got to make sure we set aside some of these carryover funds to add to our budget for this project. So I just getting you prepared for that, for when I bring you that carryover balance here in a few months.
You guys have any questions? We're here, try to do my best to feel it, yeah.
The figures you're throwing out there, you have 2 different size garages in here. Which one are you?
So the base, so this is without alternates, the 14,000.
Well, you have 146 feet long on one of them, and 170 feet on the other one. So which one? What figures are you throwing out
What are
there?
you looking at?
The original garage and then adding the bay, what he's talking about.
Yeah, so this estimate includes both the original size, which is this estimate here, the 5.7, is without the additional bay. This with right here, additional maintenance bay, 24 by 70. You know, that's adding that additional bay adds $431,000. Yes. So that answer.
Yeah.
You guys have anything?
Questions on the board? Thank you very much for coming in and explaining it so clearly to us. I'm sure you'll hear back from us, we'll still have to have some more discussions, but we do appreciate you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it was informational tonight.
Yes,
I think that was the point, when asking for any decision. I think there was no decisions on the agenda, just for us to kind of show you where we're at with things. Because like I said, we don't get in front of you guys very often, so it's nice to see new and almost new faces too.
That being said, I don't believe you've been paid for any of this work yet.
No.
So they're gonna want a purchase order, and before I commit to that, it's a percentage fee on that total cost. I wanna make sure we're all good to go with that, because I'll need to get that purchase order signed to get moving, because.
Yeah, we have that, I mean, we have a contract for work, so essentially the PO kind of establishes, this is Jeff's legal instrument on like us to bill. And we've been in, you know, we've had a good relationship, we're kind of like a good faith, working ahead. I mean, this is like through SD, we're actually probably a little bit beyond that as far as design wise. But yeah, it is something that we kind of, I give Jeff a little bit elbow, you know, how can we move this along?
And I
hear it at home too, you know, so.
I don't want to issue the purchase order and then have a board say, we don't even want to do this project, because I would have committed this already. And when boards change like that, it's kind of tough. When there's a consistent board, I've got a feel for what I can move forward with. So I guess if there are concerns, we'll probably need to know soon, and so that we can stop the process before we've gotten too far into it.
And I think this was a board approved project, the previous board.
It
right?
was.
It was.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Can I get a copy of that?
yeah, and this is the same thing I sent you, Jeff, but I actually.
Mr. Lancaster, when are we
I
gonna
just didn't
know
give it out.
the carryover, when you look at all those numbers and present it to us? When does that happen?
My final financial statements have to be presented to you by the end of September.
Okay.
So I will know at the second board meeting in September and you will know
Okay.
what our true carryover
Sorry.
projection is. or
Thank you.
it, number.
That fine print.
Yeah, it's probably a little hard to see up there, I realize that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You give me one, I'll make them a copy.
So when you say you wanna move forward with this in the next, so the next process would be
Umbrellas and hit waiters.
bidding the job out if it's approved?
Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do before they can develop specs to send to a company, but yes, if, as long as we're on board, I'm gonna issue them a purchase order for their share of this project and we're gonna go forward.
And that would start, but then we'd be putting the schedule together, you know, there's usually, there'd be another phase of design, more conversation with these guys.
Timeline.
You know, we'd have a schedule put together, we'd be trying to figure out what's the best opportune time to bid. You know, like right now, it's not a great time to bid in the middle of summer, but we would want to try to bid, you know, towards the end of the year or towards the early part of the new year to get it out there when people are looking for work, right? And then hopefully there's enough time in procurement, which is a huge deal right now. Steel buildings, I'm just doing one at Cape on Bridge right now for a gym. You know, it took them 6 months to get the steel package. So, you know, that's what we're dealing with, and this is just one of the elements. You know, there's such a backup in just getting materials to job sites. We gotta be projecting that out, because you're gonna be out, you know, bus garage, once we get the contractor out there, and we're working on strategies with contractors to bid that procurement period in, so they can order materials, not hit the job site. All they're doing is working on getting the materials ordered for whatever the duration really necessary, and then, so they're not out there tearing down their building, and we're sitting there for 6 months saying, where's the steel? You know, it's not a school, we have a little bit more flexibility, but it's a pretty important facility for the district, so, you know, I mean, it's delivering all the kids to school, so I don't know what's more important. Anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Hey,
much.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You know, if you need anything, I'm sure that these guys will reach out to us, get any questions.
Next thing on the agenda, thank you guys, will be delegations, and our first, for those of you that may be new to this, delegations are given 5 minutes to speak, and then, we are not allowed to respond. By law, we are not allowed to respond or do anything like that. It's not that we are ignoring you, it's just that we can't respond to anything that's not listed right on the agenda. So our first delegation is Stacy Barkus. And Stacy, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. I just wanted to come this evening. Tonight you're going to hear some possible revisions to the dual credit policy for Wetzel County. I'm here to kind of represent Magnolia High School. Just to give you a little bit of my background for dual credit, I've been teaching personally or facilitating the college English class at Magnolia for 10 plus years. I started out teaching it myself, and then when the system changed what masters you needed, then I became a facilitator. The process had always been grading wise, that the college class was 1 grade, and then the students would get a grade from myself as well. If you're new to dual credit classes, the way mine works, in my class the students are taking 3 courses. In the fall they take Composition 101 plus English 12 for myself, and then second semester they take Comp 1 and 2. And then they continue with the English 12. So they get 6 hours of college credit from WIMNIC, and then they get the high school credit of English 12 from me. The English class that they're taking is actually the honors class for the seniors. And in the new possible revision, the way the grading would be that their grade at the high school level would be 60% from the college and 40% from myself. There's only one teacher at Magnolia who is the actual teacher of the college class. So this doesn't really pertain to him, Mr. Mason, but the rest of us were very uncomfortable with the possible revision, so I said that I would come and speak for us tonight. Some of the possible issues that we have, Magnolia has gone to the standards-based grading, and so our grade book is solely based on summative assessments, tests, quizzes, projects, essays, final writing assignments. In the college class that I facilitate, the students do have essays, but they also have a weekly discussion. They have a short reply that they do, and they have typically a weekly quiz that they're able to do open book. And I don't feel comfortable putting those grades into my grade book, because I feel at the end of the 9 weeks, at the end of the semester, my grade reflects the learning that the students have done in my classroom. And I feel if I can't justify, if I sat down with a parent and said, here's what your student did in my classroom, but here's what they did online, but here's where their grades get clumped together. I don't feel comfortable doing that. If I can't defend what the grade was, because I never saw the assignment, I don't feel comfortable putting that into my grade book. I want whenever they get their grade, they know that they have mastered the contents of English 12 within my classroom. It's the essays, the tests, the quizzes, the projects that they've completed for me. The other aspect of the revision is if a student fails the college class, then they have to do credit recovery. And just thinking of some of the parents that I've had in the past, you know, if they failed a class, I do not have many that fail the college course. But there are occasionally those that do, and typically that's on that student. You know, when I'm in the classroom with my kids, I can contain what they do. I can pressure them to get things turned in. When their assignments are due at 11:59 at night, when they're not with me, I can't do anything about that. So I just feel that if they do possibly fail the college class, but they pass mine, I see it's an injustice to them to make them take credit recovery English 12 when they have realistically mastered those standards with me. We just are very passionate about what we do in Magnolia with the dual credit. We have a lot of students that take advantage of those. We have met with WIBNIC, and they have said what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And just to give you an idea about grading with the 60-40, it wasn't until last year that we could actually see the grades that the students were getting. Before that, I would have to walk around and say, okay, log in, let me see it. They went to a new system last year, so WIBNIC lets us sign in as a guest when we're a facilitator. So I was actually able to see the progress that they did. But again, we would still be at the mercy of WIBNIC. What WIBNIC is willing to share, that's the information that we know. And there are a lot of times their grades aren't posted automatically. Also, the double-edged sword, this is a college class. There have been times the seniors have had technology issues, couldn't get something turned in, and they got a 0 for an assignment in that college English class. And again, in high school, if it's a technology issue, we're going to work with them. Not saying that WIBNIC doesn't, but they expect them to have a backup plan or something of that nature. So they aren't as lenient as we would be. And I just don't feel comfortable putting a 0 in my grade book because of a technology issue or something like that. I want my grades to reflect what I have taught my students. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second delegation is Mrs. Beckett.
Well, I didn't really expect to be back tonight and being the first day of school. It's like, but those of you who know me, I'm never speechless. So, just to reiterate some of the things that we have talked about. Critical thinking is crucial for our students. It makes them better citizens. It teaches them to make better decisions. And that's what we're about. These are young adults. They are already making some of their own decisions. We have kids who live on their own, have their own apartment. We have kids who have to figure out how many hours a week they can work and still keep up with high school because they're helping their parents pay the bills. These are not babies. These are not little kids. They need to be able to look at something, research it, find the good research, and make a decision about it. That's what the class is about. When you teach critical thinking, what you're teaching is the students to ask why. Why is this like this is? What can I do to help this? If it's a problem, just like today, water is an issue in this county. I don't care where you go. It's an issue. Today, our water is brown. Do you want to drink it? They tell us it's fine. I'm not going to drink brown water. I'm sorry. It has mud in it at least, if nothing else. So, and we teach this by asking open-ended questions, having them do their own research, coming together as a group, making decisions on what we need to do. Is there anything we can do about the water? Who knows? Maybe. Our kids in the Innovation Fair last year won, and theirs was a water project, and they came out of there with an offer from a company about doing a patent on something that they had developed. They were thinking, they were putting it together, they were doing what they needed to do. These students are way beyond where they were 25 years ago. They really are. In your own policy, academic freedom, it says, it is interpreted as the right of an individual to engage in teaching and learning without interference. It does not come without responsibility, and we certainly will take responsibility. We have no problem with that. It's an unbiased view, and I think some of you think that we're biased. No, we want those kids to look at all the possibilities to make a decision. It also says it helps the students to arrive at an enlightened conclusion. We want them to be better citizens. We want them to be better decision makers. This is their life. Their careers depend on it. They have to be able to work in groups. They have to make good decisions. It says further on, the teachers are encouraged to diversify their teaching approaches, and all appropriate teaching methods are acceptable. If there is something that is controversial, the teacher must clear the potentially controversial error with the principal. So there's your oversight. I mean, I'm there. I'm in and out of her class at least once a week, once every 10 days. I stop in if I hear them talking about something that I'm interested in. I hated history, but there are parts of it that I liked. I mean, that I was interested in and want to discuss. So I'm there. The materials are available. I mean, they have to be posted on her Schoology website. I don't know what else we can do. Ask us questions. We welcome them.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is superintendent's information.
Hi. We just got through our first day of school for the 22-23 school year, and we got good reports back from the principals that it was a wonderful day, and that the kids and the teachers are ready to come back for day 2. So it's always exciting to get that first day under our belts and get everybody back into a routine, and really happy to have the kids back. That's why we have a job, and we're very excited to have them back. The only thing I want to go over tonight is what I promised I would go over with you the next meeting, and that is what's in front of you, the family and community partnerships, which is our second goal on our strategic plan. Actually, it's our first. We have 2 goals, instructional leadership and family and community partnerships. And I went over the instructional leadership at the last meeting. Under family and community partnerships, there are 3 areas. The school community fosters shared responsibility for student success. The community understands and supports the school's mission, and partnerships exist between school and community to support academic, social, emotional, and physical needs. In the first area, the school fostering, community fostering shared responsibility for student success. It points to community agencies and organizations engaging families in meaningful and culturally appropriate ways, and families taking initiative to actively support their children's development and learning. Under community understanding and supporting the school's mission, it really talks about the direction setting, and that we are clear about the mission, and that the stakeholders are clear about our mission, and it is illustrated in the day-to-day activities of the school. And for the partnerships existing between the school and community to support what we do, we provide supports and resources to meet the staff, the family, and students' needs that go beyond what is typically available through the school. So we don't stop at just the school's doors or what the resources that we have available to us within our system. We work diligently to go out with outside resources to make sure that we connect our families and our students with those resources and we bring them to us. So that is what this particular standard under the 7 standards for effective schools is and how we are addressing that in our strategic plan. And with that being said, that's all I have for you tonight, President Bonner.
Oh, thank you. Okay, next thing will be number 6, superintendent's recommendations. First of all, we have the approval of minutes from the regular meeting on August 8th, 2022. Do we have a motion for approval of those?
So moved.
It's been moved by Dr. Christian. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Nice. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Under personnel matters, we have the resignations, the professional personnel, the service personnel, the extracurricular, a reconfiguration of one position, and leave of absences. Do we have a motion for approval of the superintendent's recommendations as outlined under personnel matters?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have C, the ratification of superintendent's recommendation. We are removing that item from this agenda, and we'll revisit it another time. So we'll move down to routine matters. And we have the request to attend Wetzel County Schools, to use the facilities, out-of-state trips. We have a motion for approval of the superintendent's recommendation under the routine matters. Also moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, this carries unanimously. Okay, treasurer's report.
I have nothing for you this evening.
Okay, all right, that was easy. Okay, next we're looking at the first reading of revised and deleted Wetzel County policies. I would like to move that we separate out the policy IKC dual credit policy from the rest of the policies for separate discussion. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of just moving that out to discuss it separately from all the rest, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Okay, so now looking at all the other policies that are there, and as we look at those, we notice that they're under the first reading. Some of them are revised, some of them are deleted. Again, when we're doing this policy review of the entire county's policies, we're getting it up to date, as some policies haven't been reviewed since 1978, so we're talking over 40 years. So we meet with the lawyer first, then Mr. Todd Barkus works with us and has a committee to meet and review them and make suggestions and then bring to the board. So looking at all except for IKC dual credit policy, do I have a motion to approve on first reading the policies listed? Also moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. So now let's go back to the one that we have asked on the dual credit policy to discuss a little bit. Could we have a little bit of what I'd like to know is a little bit of the understanding of why we added the 40 to 60, and I'm on the committee, but I didn't even think of this aspect when we reviewed it. But could we have a little bit of a description of why we moved to this 40-60% grade?
Certainly. When this was going under consideration, Mr. Houston, who's secondary director, came to me and told me there were some issues with grading for dual credit classes, and he came up with a solution and a suggestion for our new dual credit policy. So I will let Mr. Houston talk about this.
Yeah, in the old policy, we really didn't have any consistency at all in how things were, or how dual credit was being given and grades were given across the county. you know, Magnolia's grade is only based on the small portion of the high school standards. Most of the classes are out there. 3 days out of the 5, they're working on college work. The other 2 days are working on the high school standards. That's where the 60-40 came from.
I guess my question is, and this is the teacher in me from all the years, so, if I'm teaching my students and I'm putting the grade on their report card, and parents wanna ask about their grades, I can say, this is why they had trouble in this area, they could, you know, and discuss with them. If they're passing my class, but then I have to give them a low grade because they're not passing the college class, I don't think that's fair to the teacher or to the student. That's my view on it. I don't know if anybody else has any comment.
The percentage is an issue, and the passing, without, not to find them, I'm kind of confused about the concept of taking credit recovery. I'm not sure how a student that's taken a dual credit class would ever find themselves in a position to take credit recovery. I mean, that's kind of
Well, if they failed the class,
If they failed
Yeah, but
what they did on their 12th grade, we'll say English, language arts, whatever. If they failed that, then I understand credit recovery. But if their grade is low because they didn't do their college work, but they did their 12th grade work adequately, I don't understand them going to credit recovery for what happens at Rubnik.
well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but the bottom line is, we had potential situations where a kid did their 40% and 100%, and then they did 30% of their college, and if we would have just based it on that high school and not only, the majority of the time was the college, they could have potentially been valedictorian and failed the college course.
But the college part isn't a required part to graduate with, correct?
Well, it's kind of a dual situation.
Now, and the college doesn't take the high school grades and mix them in with theirs for their college grade, do
No,
they?
they don't.
So why are we, I just feel, I'm only one of 5, I've learned that. But I still feel that let Woodnick give them their grade and let the high school teacher give them theirs. But if anybody else wants to comment on something, please do.
Mr. Houston, if I may, I think too, and I see both sides, and this conversation is very interesting to me. But we do have some situations where we have the teacher that teaches the entire class as a dual credit class. So we do have this differentiation. We have no policy or no structure really that helps anyone determine grades, and we have different schools doing different
That's
things.
exactly
So this
right.
is your attempt
I
at being
attempt to-
uniform. It may
Yeah.
not be the best.
No.
We don't know. That's what this discussion's about.
Right.
But that is where this conversation has come from. So there's gonna have to be some work done somehow on this. If this policy does not pass, we're gonna have to get
And
together.
I could see if the college professor is the same person as the high school, and they're doing all the work with them, then I could see that as being a grade. But when it's two separate things, like I said, I just put myself in that place thinking, if I'm teaching and they're getting it from me, and then they go and don't do their work for the college part, I don't think it should affect them on their high school grade. So, anybody else?
I'm just going along with, I do agree with what you're saying, I like that it's two different things, I think it wasn't that long ago, but I've been in both of those settings, and they're two totally different atmospheres. Everyone learns in a different capacity, so I do think it should be two different credits.
And if I could add to this, because this is a world that I'm starting to explore a little bit more, my view on it may be a little bit different. I'm looking at the standards and the certain percentage of standards that must be met by the college of the West Virginia standards in order for that to be considered dual credit. And I think that comes into play in this whole conversation as well a bit. So just like I said,
It's
another,
actually the standards
another
that the high
piece of
school
this.
has that already are covered in the
Yes, and
the
it's-
post-secondary classes,
Correct.
yes, yeah.
So it's not, so in a sense, we're covering 100% of the standards, but a certain percent may be covered at the college level and a certain percent is covered with the high school teacher as well.
There's some
So,
overlap.
Yes.
It is
I
tricky,
understand that.
it's very
I mean,
tricky.
I'm just thinking of the students and the teachers and in the case of somebody that's doing both, I mean, maybe that could even be part of the policy. If somebody's doing both if there's a trained person that's teaching both the college and the high school course, then yes, it would be one grade. But those that aren't, it could still be two.
Is it possible to have the instructors that are involved, the high school instructors that are involved in the dual credit, for them to meet together and with Mr. Houston and whoever else that you all might select and see if you can come to some consensus?
Of course.
I mean, cause they're in the trenches, I mean, we've talked about that before. They're the people who, I'm not sure who they are from every school, but I'd like to hear what they have. You know, Ms. Sparkus spoke, but I want, to see if we have a consensus of opinion from the other schools.
And it would be good to get people from the other schools, so that if there is, like you were saying, it's not always done the same, and maybe we could get more consistency if they helped work on it.
It's just a gray area. I mean, it's some that can be beneficial, in some situations, not so much.
So, how do we do this?
I'm not sure the procedure, we separated that out anyway,
Yeah, you
right?
separated it out.
Right.
So you can just go ahead and vote.
So I can vote for the
Vote for the
I
rest
can
of
motion
them,
for the
and
rest
then-
of them, right?
Then bring up IPC.
I thought we voted for the
You're
rest of
Oh,
them.
that's right, you did, so
Yeah.
now you can just vote for IPC.
You're on the vote right now,
Right,
For
for
IKC.
IKC, that's okay.
Sorry.
But if we wanna wait until after you guys can meet and see what other ideas come up, would we be better off to table it until then, or, I mean.
Table the first reading until after they
Meet,
meet and give you an updated revised
okay, we can do that,
I'll make that motion.
okay?
Whatever you're gonna write down.
I'll say that.
Okay, so Mr. Castello moved that the dual credit policy be tabled so that Mr. Houston and the teachers involved in the dual credit teaching can meet and try to work out the policy in a little more detail, or to discuss it at least, to get some ideas. So it's been moved by Mr. Castello and seconded by Mrs. Nice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Right. Next thing is number 9, discussion and possible action regarding locally developed course, Social Problems 1, A World in Crisis. I'll go ahead and start. I'm not the one that asked to put it on, but I have a couple things I wanna say, because I've had quite a week with phone calls and texts and everything. First thing I wanna say deals with copyright, because I kept bringing that up at the last, I wasn't comfortable. But I received the information that told where they were able to pick the course code from, and the course code already had that title. So if an online program, at least this is my understanding, if they pick the same code, they would have the same title. That doesn't mean they're teaching the same thing. So knowing that, and knowing that we have a quality teacher that worked hard on this, I just wanna make it clear that I don't see myself right now any copyright issue. So I wanted to say that first. Okay, secondly, wow, the phone calls, the text. Most of them, the people were very responsive and spoke rationally about it. I did have one that was swearing and yelling, but the rest were very, very calm. And it wasn't about the deep democracy method. I think that's what we just were using here on different pages on what we should do and finding what we had in common and, going from there. It was more on some of the different issues under some of the sections. The one that I heard most was under 12, gender inequality, child marriages, and fertility. And letter D analyze the ways in which women in the United States have historically controlled their fertility and current trends concerning fertility in American politics. That's the one that I got the most calls on. Part of it was concerned that that should be a family thing. Part of it was, and I know on the other side you can say, but some don't have the families to teach them that, you know. Part of it was, one of my concerns is 9th and 10th grade boys and girls in with juniors and seniors taking this and discussing fertility. I'm not comfortable with that, I'll be honest. So mostly what I saw were like little things here and there. So I'll say that, and then if anybody else wants to comment on anything now, the floor is open to you.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I'm the one asked to put it back on. And it wasn't necessary to revote. That was not my intention, but we made a vote to allow this course to take place at Valley, and we're the board that approved it. So I think there should be an avenue for us to evaluate the course, to review it, and decide if this is something next year that we want to continue doing or not continue doing. We basically voted and wrote a blank check for how we proceed with this. And I've received a lot of calls too, and a lot of thank yous for my vote. It's been much the same issues, you know, little things here and there. The fertility was a big one. So that was why I put it back on. I think we need some sort of motion, some sort of action to at least revisit this. You know, it was a 4-1 vote. I was the no vote. I'm not looking to change votes. That was not my intent here, but I would like to add to what we've done.
Anybody else have any comments?
I don't think that's a whole lot different, I mean, it might be a little bit more in some detail, but as far as what you would have in gym class versus, you're not mixed in with some different grades, mostly the same class, but again, it's an elective class, it's gonna be mostly upperclassmen.
Mostly, that's my concern on that one. I just, the students that I know that are going into 9th grade this year, it concerns me for them to have it that young. 11th and 12th grade, I'm fine.
Now, for instance, some children that may be younger that wanna take this class, that you've got some children that wanna take, students that wanna take honors classes, that qualify for that is their place, that fits them. Some might be ready for that. Is there a way that can be evaluated for the student, like if they meet X amount of requirements or, you know, they're eligible for it? I mean, a certain grade point average, something along those lines, to say, we think you're ready for this, or we think you're
But
at
this
that level.
isn't so much academic as maturity. I think that's part of it too, and that's hard to judge. I don't think we can judge maturity.
It's a real tough one too, because we have kids that might not be emotionally mature enough, but they are at reproductive age.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, that's a tough one,
It
that's
is.
a tough call for us.
I also wonder if, and I mentioned this early on, I know we don't ask other ones to have the parents sign the syllabus saying, I agree that they can take this class. But since this is the first time for this, I don't want people coming back saying, we didn't know anything about this. Could it just be that when they get their schedule, they get their parents to sign the schedule, that they approve it and they've seen this, that they know what they're going into? Because I'm afraid some parents that aren't going to approve of this, and they're out there, that they're gonna be upset if they're not notified and this is what their child's taking.
Now, there's some papers that have come home, last year, my oldest daughter was in 8th grade, and there have been some syllabuses that, you know, you have to, this is step 1, please sign this, so you know what your child is doing, your student's gonna be covering. So
All course syllabi are to go home with the kids, and they are all to be signed at the high school level.
So if we could
They all have to sign them.
make sure, I know it's easy to get a friend to sign it for you too, but I just think that we need to really look at that
Also for
closely.
field trips, and we send kids on field trips.
Oh, no, I'm saying that,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, I'm trying to be
Yeah.
practical, but I know that happens. But I really think, especially in this case, after all the, like I'm saying, I told you, calls and texts and not just so much, that I really think that we need to make sure that parents do sign the syllabus before doing it, and that we're careful with, because there are going to be parents who believe and strongly believe that they need to deal with a lot of these issues in their home.
And
They
because
want
it's an
that,
elective,
and
they
it's an
can,
elective,
they
that's what I'm
can, they don't,
saying.
their kid does not have to opt in.
That's
So
right.
this course syllabus goes home and the parent sees it and does not wanna sign it, then we can change the kid's schedule.
That's
for
what I
sure.
wanted to hear.
Yes, of course.
We can't ask, well, I'll ask you and then you can ask. Have students already signed up for this class?
I'm imagining they have.
Well, today was
Already
school.
signed
Today's
up
the
for
first
this
day of
class.
school.
Yes, today's
Yeah.
the first day of school, yes.
Come on.
Today's the
Well,
first day
we
of
know,
school,
but
so yes,
the
they were in it. They were in
Master
it.
schedule was set. We had the vote from the last meeting, of course, we went ahead and enrolled them in the class.
How many students are signed up for it, please?
There are 9.
9.
9.
9? How about grade level?
We had one freshman, she is an honor student. I talked to her guardian, at length about, and I showed her the syllabus, and she said, this child can do anything you put in front of her, and she wants it, so give it to her. She's brilliant. I mean, this kid is brilliant.
And everybody else is 10th, 11th, obviously 10th,
Yes,
11th, or
yes,
12th
they're
grade.
great.
And I would think that, I mean, this is a whole different thing. This is a lot. This is a lot, and I would like to see if you could report back to us maybe after the first month or 9 weeks, whatever, of where we've moved on here and what we're moving on, and if you're gonna, because as a teacher, I know everything doesn't go exactly how you have it planned. So I'd just like to see, like, okay, we've gotten this, we've done this, we've decided not to do this, we're gonna add this. I'd like to hear an update.
Well, I too have got a lot of phone calls and out of town winter days, I got a lot of ball outs for my boat, but that's okay. I even had one parent to tell me that if we continue with this class, they're gonna take their child out of Valley High School, move into Harrison County. And, so, we're really on the fence here, but.
That's a shame because it's not required class.
So I'm kinda like Mrs. Bonner, I think that if we can get a signature of the parents letting them have the class, I have no problem with that. But until,
I think as an elective,
Right.
you have several options. And for someone, like you said, in honors class, and if the parents have a signature, I don't see an issue with the material of it. And I think that's kind of neat for a freshman to want to do that. Like, you have several different things to choose from. But like you said, if the parents are okay with it, or the guardians, each their own.
So are we going to get the parents to sign this, or how are we gonna handle this?
Have you already prepared the syllabus to be signed
Yes,
up here?
They have to be.
They have to be, all high school syllabi
So-
have to be signed.
Mhm, they
But
all
this, will that be for this individual class? What I'm asking?
Every
It's
class,
everything.
every class they have.
Okay.
Will there be any deviation from this? As, last meeting, you spoke about more of a current events type approach, so as new issues pop up, maybe in world affairs, what kind of, are we sticking strictly to this as we go through the course of the school year, or will it deviate and?
Well, I think that some of the categories are broad, such as international conflicts or
Right.
human rights violations. To say there is a human rights violation crisis that happens somewhere in Southeast Asia, that being a current event could fall under that category.
It would be interesting, and I think of this because you probably don't remember this, Mr. Lancaster, but years ago I did a presentation about this program that I was doing, and the kids made their websites and all at 10 years old, and they said to me, we'd like to see what the students think about it. And so I brought in students, and I just remember you telling me one student that she made a webpage that you couldn't even have done at that point. This was a long time ago when we were all getting started. I mean,
Is it still the truth?
sorry about that.
I'm sure it's still the truth, and
But-
I'm sure I said that.
But it would be interesting to see a couple students that have opposing views explain how they use the steep democracy method to work out their things. I think that would be a good thing for us to see.
Just in report to the board?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, if they'd be willing to.
Great.
So we're going to have Mrs. Beckett come back in about 9 weeks and give us an update of everything?
Absolutely.
And students at that time?
Or if they're ready, and students at that time too.
Yes.
I mean, just a brief,
I
like
thought
what
about
they like
students.
about it, what they've learned about it, and.
I thought about students tonight, but since they're not into the class and they
Right.
don't know, but that's premature.
It's always good to hear, it's always good to hear what the kids have to say about anything, just like when we recognize kids tonight. I mean, a lot of them are not into public speaking much, but
I feel
They
like
can
these
do it.
ones might be a little bit more comfortable if they're at that level to learn about, you know.
And I'll say it, and because I mentioned it before, so you know how I feel. I think we do need to be very careful that we're using primary sources to do our research and not using, as you mentioned, you wouldn't use editorial pieces or using political programs on one side or the other that are very op-ed type things.
That's my concern.
That's fear.
I don't want this to go off the rails politically,
Yeah.
one direction without oversight and making sure we're presenting both sides of any particular topic.
Well, as I mentioned earlier today, it's more than just two sides.
Well, there are, but I mean, I read through this, there's language in here that politically is charged and slanted in a certain direction. I just wanna make sure and be clear that we're not gonna go down a path where we're teaching ideology and we're actually presenting both sides of a particular topic.
My comment is, someone not from Valley High School, but just my caution, or my, I don't say apprehension, but if the board is gonna allow a class to be given, I'm afraid you're setting a bad precedent with this onerous oversight requirement. And I'm not defending the class, I'm not picking a side, but it is an elective. They don't have to take it.
That's right.
The fact it's being offered has caused controversy. The fact that the board wants a little bit more, you know, we want some more review, we want this, we want that, we want the students to come, that sets a precedent because any other elective that this county offers now, someone could find a fence with and want to know why you're not oversight at that, to that level in that class. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and I'm not sure it's good for this.
Well, I believe that, and I'm gonna stick to this, and I'm gonna stop the conversation at this point. I believe both sides have had plenty of time to, or both groups have had plenty of time to speak. I think we've said we're going forward with it. We've asked you to report back in 9 weeks. You're gonna get your syllabus signed and keep us updated, and we'd like to see students. I think I don't feel that's overreach, and I believe that, like I said, we just used that deep democracy that I learned about watching the TED Talk and all. So I think we came to an okay agreement on that. There's nothing on here that calls for any type of voting. So with that being said, I'm gonna move us on to the next thing on the agenda, which is number 10, school safety discussion. As we've said each week that we've had meetings recently, school safety is something that we have to keep in executive session because it's going to be used to keep our students, our staff, and all safe, and we cannot discuss some of those things in open. So at this time, at 8:03, we're going to executive session.
You wanna stay here or do you wanna go to my office?
Make a second, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Second.
Wait a second, thank you. All those in favor going into executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous that we're going.
In here, because most people will leave.
Okay.
Are gonna be leaving.
no's or not?
She says no. so-
Okay.
No.
We never have.
That's what we said.
Ready?
Never said.
We never have.
Okay.
Oh, if you've been reading, then we better do it.
I move that we come back out of executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we're out of executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous that we're out of executive session, and we are restarting regular session at 8:21. Our next thing to discuss is the board member committee reports. I can say that on policy committee, we just finished the one that has all the ones that we looked at tonight, and we have 2 sections yet to go. We don't know yet when we're gonna have the next section to look at. Does anybody else have any type of committee report?
Multi-advisory council meets on Thursday at 9 o'clock.
Yes, it does.
Anybody else? Okay, all right, other items. Discussion of policy 2322, West Virginia support and accountability, school performance, student outcomes, academics, and student achievement.
Yes, I think the biggest, thing about accountability right now would be my goal setting. That's going to be occurring, what day is that?
Friday
Friday, okay.
at 9 a.m.
At 9 a.m. So I do wanna make everybody aware that, I will be having my goals set in collaborative, nature with the board at that time at 9 a.m. And we will go now to my assistant, Mr. Cook.
It's been such a long day, I got nothing.
You got, okay, I agree. Mr. Lancaster, anything?
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay, Mr. Doty?
Don't have an update for Pagan City yet, the contractors meeting is tomorrow, but as of the last meeting, all the units are supposed to ship tomorrow, so unless we get an update tomorrow's meeting that they pushed them back, all the units should be showing up. They're planning on setting them on a weekend, so there's gonna be no issues with school, they can get the crane in there, get everything set up. As for the addition part, next 2 weeks, they're gonna end up pouring some concrete for the restroom area, set the drains, and finish laying block up to the bearing points. And weather pending, New Martinsville's roof will be done this week. So, depending on what happens with the weather, they told me Friday that they'd be finishing up this week, so hopefully the rain can hold off and let them finish.
So the Paid City students and staff are
They
back in
were back to
teaching?
school today, everything's up and running.
Mrs. Stanford's gonna tell you a little bit about how that happened too,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Great first day back, as far as transportation, just a couple minor glitches, but we took care of them quickly and efficiently.
How many freshmen missed their bus today?
I don't know many.
Good! Amazing!
None. And, other than if you would've seen the bus garage this morning, we had a flood through there, so.
Yeah, you could've swam in there.
Yeah, just went under the walls and we got some leaks in the roof, so that just goes along with what they talked about earlier, so.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Stanford?
Well, I spent the day out in the schools. I just want to say it's just so much fun to see the kids and the teachers interacting, and I was telling Mrs. Wells earlier that I wanted to really thank Peyton City Elementary, because I was down there a couple times last week, and when I saw the school, I thought, I don't know how the school's going to be ready, honestly. You can I mean, it had a lot of work to do.
The last 3 days was a
And
lot of work.
that staff came together and worked all weekend, scrubbing the gym floor, I mean, everything, scrubbing carpets themselves and stuff to get that school open for kids.
Teachers,
And
principals, family,
And it
teachers,
looked great
families,
today,
yes.
it really did,
Yes.
and they had everything set up for the kids, it was all decorated and everything. So I'm just gonna say thank you to them, because they really did put forth a lot of effort to do that. Gave a lot of extra.
Mr. Houston, you probably want to brag a little bit on Payne City High School too.
I was at Page City High School this morning, and I was told that was probably the best opening they've had in many years. The teachers really worked together this last week, trying to putting things in place to make it successful. So they're to be commended.
They also worked over the weekend, and
Yeah.
Mr. McPherson and Mr. West also went
Yeah.
in over the weekend to
Oh,
work with
yeah.
them. So, to get the schedules done and all that, so.
Mr. McPherson will probably be back down there tomorrow morning.
Probably.
I also told you last week that, or last board meeting, that I'll be able to talk to you about test scores. They're no longer under embargo. Our district scores, mathematics proficiency was 31%. English language arts, we were at 36% proficiency for the district, and science at 24%. Those numbers don't sound very good, but they are an improvement from last year. Math, we were up 6% as a district, that's pretty good. ELA, we're up 2% as a district, and in science, we were up 3% as a district.
And our strategic plan goal was to raise, in the next 2 years, to raise 2.5%.
Right.
So we met the goal in the first year.
Yeah.
So, in that grade level, in those areas, yes.
I would tell you that high schools, remember, high school only takes, the 11th graders take the SAT, so it's not the same group of kids every year. We had a decline of 1% in high school mathematics. We had an increase of 3% in ELA, and we had a 4% decrease in science. But we had some pretty significant grades in our elementary, or significant gains in our elementary. We were up 8% in our 3 through 8 last year in math. ELA was only a 1% gain, but it was a gain. And science was a 9% gain overall. So those are good things. Also, I wanted to say would be a positive under the writing portion for the elementary. SAT, they no longer do essays. But under the writing portion, 3rd grade under the opinion essay, Payton City Elementary had 17% of their students score 4. 4 is like the holy grail.
Yeah.
You're talking in the top 1% or less get 4s. So they had, in 3rd grade, they had 17% of their students scored 4 on the opinion essay, which is really good. 6th grade Long Drain School under argumentation, 18% of their students had 4s. And in 8th grade, both Long Drain and the Long Drain had 7% of their students in elaboration, and 7% under the purpose for information for an informative essay. There's 2 different things there. But 7% of their students had 4s, which is pretty good. And New Martinsville School had 3% of their students get a 4. Like I said, 4s are holy grail. So that's a positive. Some of our lower grades, their writing's pretty good. Now I know when we're talking about numbers, just put things in perspective. When we're looking at numbers, math, if you want to look like, if you want to compare us like counties, districts, last year rank in mathematics, we were 28th out of 55. We moved up to 25th, so that we moved up three spots in mathematics. And in English language arts, we were ranked 44th last year. We moved up to 38th, so 6-spot improvement. And science, we moved up from 43 to 30, 13-point jump in science. So, we've got some work to do, but we're moving in the right direction. Believe me, I was listening to the state board meeting last week, and the state board president says, we've got lots of work statewide. So, but we're working in, and we do have some improvements.
It's nice to see Wetzel County showing growth.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
nice.
yeah. There's growth.
Well, and talking about growth, I have to mention this, for 4 years, Shortline has been on this plan to have the state coming in and helping them, and you're working with them, and then we did the special circumstance review and brought more people in, and I think a lot of the personnel were feeling really down because they were trying so hard, but we put a lot of stuff into place that worked out, and Dr. Emch has done a fabulous job, as well as others that went out and helped too. I drove out there the other day, and I wore my red and black and went around to every
I saw
room.
you did it.
I went to every room and I talked to every person that was in the hallway, or janitors, or secretary, anybody, and just let them know that we appreciate how hard they've worked, and they are doing a good job. I mean, they went up the rankings.
Well, I can,
More than
let me
anybody.
tell you about Shoreline, I can tell you Shoreline. Shoreline, for mathematics, gained 13%. That's pretty
That's amazing.
significant for a
Yeah,
whole
it
school.
sure is.
And in English language arts, they gained 11%, so double-digit growth in both those subject areas. Science was 4%, but, so they had significant growth.
And when you look at the rankings in the state of the different elementary schools, 300, however many there are of them, they moved up like 100 steps.
Yeah.
So proud of them.
They just start to be commended
Yes.
greatly.
Did they get kicked off the list now?
We're hoping, we're
I
thinking.
think
That's what somebody asked me that was out there, I said, I'm not in charge of that.
I
I
think
said,
if it's
I should be out here
teenagers,
and
they
do
should
September
not be on
14th,
there.
I think.
September 14th is the magic day.
I think so.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to
Take
mention,
cake.
I'm sorry, because you're probably ready to do your report, but do you mind if I say one more thing? I was gonna let you, sorry. I would like, since we have so many new young teachers and some that aren't certified and ones that are working on it and all, I would like to see us help support getting some of these teachers to things like the math conference and the science conference and the ELA thing, the reading conference, because they may be the ones that start taking over as older people leave, you know. I just think that that would be another way to support them.
I love that idea. We
Okay,
can make that happen.
and I'm sorry,
So in the child nutrition world, there were a few hiccups today. You know, day one with Primero and Weebus 2.0, but I believe we've ironed all those out. Fingers crossed. The sync tonight should fix most of those issues. And I've been in touch with many of our schools who have had those. Like I said, they were little bumps in the road, nothing major. And then last week, I got to do a very a unique feature of my job, and that is to procure local food for our school nutrition program. And Mr. Castello was with me when we purchased a market steer from Eden Harlan from Magnolia, who was actually here earlier, yes. And that will be processed and used in our child nutrition program.
That's wonderful.
Yes. And there we go.
Now we adjourn.
Mr. Kimball?
I can't follow that.
I don't think she broke the budget either, so.
No.
We're just finishing up IEPs from the summer and just taking care of business.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I'm playing pickle.
Been playing pickleball much.
Okay, is anybody have anything else that they want to add? Okay, if not, then I want to clarify this. The date of our next meeting is Friday, August 26th at 9 a.m. For anybody in the public that's listening, this is our goal setting with Mrs. Wells. It is not, I mean, you can come and listen to us do the pledge and all, but then we go immediately into executive session since it deals with personnel. And when we come out, we don't vote on anything. We just come out and then, again, we vote to adjourn. The next regular meeting will be October 12th at 6:30 p.m.
September.
Oh, September, thank you.
Oh.
Another mistake, mark me down. September 12th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
I'm just taking a month's break.
No, I was turning my head. So if there's nothing else, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll move.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Castello and seconded by Dr. Christian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously.